In this video, we're going to check out how the new layer and mask referencing system works in Substance Painter 2017.2. This system allows you to create anchor points that can be referenced by other layers, effects, and generators. Before we get started, I'd like to mention this model was created and textured by Jonas Rongard. Jonas is an amazing artist and has created a great set of alphas he sells on Gumroad. We licensed several of these alphas and converted them to normal maps, which can be found in the hard surfaces section of the shelf. I highly recommend you check out Jonas's Gumroad page. Okay, so let's get started by taking a look at the basics of how to use the anchor system. So what I'm going to do here is just solo this whole section of this ship. And so here in this area we have this metal material, and I'd like to add some additional surface detail to this. And I'm going to use my hard surface maps to do this. So here I'm going to come into just my layer stack, and I'm going to create a new standard layer. This is going to be a paintable layer. And here I'll just rename this details. And let's come over here to my brush, and I'm just going to enable my normal channel. And let me grab one of these maps here. I think I already have one in place. I'm using this handle 02. So here if I just expand my shelf, this is the one that I'm going to be using here. So I've got this just applied here to my normal channel. So here on my brush, I'm going to come over, and you can see that I've just removed the alpha. So here's what I have. So I'm just going to increase the size here of this brush, and then I'm just going to stamp this detail here. And so now you can see that we have this new normal detail. Now the problem with this is that, we've added this detail. However, this metal material has this metal edge wear generator producing some of this wear effect. And since we've placed this normal detail, the generator doesn't know about this normal information, meaning that it couldn't create a curvature or ambient occlusion data from it during the bake process, well, because it didn't exist. So now you can see that we have this normal information without any of the edge wear being affected by this. So what we can do now is use the anchoring system to place an anchor on this detail layer, and then we can feed that into our mask generator. This anchor allows us to establish a link between our standard layer and the mask and its generator. So to create the anchor, I can right-click and I can choose to add an anchor point. I can also, with the layer selected, come up to the Add Effect button and choose to add the anchor point from this menu as well. In my case, I'm just going to right-click and choose Add Anchor Point. So now you see that we have this anchor. Now here in the properties, we have this anchor point name, and I can change this to anything I want. You can see here by default, it's just going to pull the name from the layer, which in my case is fine. And so right here, you can see no references are found, meaning that, we haven't established a link yet. So that's what we're going to do now. So what I want to do is come over to this layer where I have this mask generator, and I'd like to be able to tell this mask generator about this detail that I painted here in my layer stack. So the mask generators have all been updated to include this micro details section. So here, if I just expand this property view, you can see that here I have an option here to enable micro details for normal and micro details for height. So in my case, I painted normal information, so that's what I'm going to use here. Also, if we take a look at our image inputs and I scroll down, you can see here that we have this micro normal map. And I'm going to need to set an input here to this channel. So what I want to do is I want to feed the data that I painted here in this detail layer. I want to feed that here into this micro normal. And I can do that using this anchor point that I created. So if I click this button here, you can see that the mini shelf appears, and we have our resources tab, and then next to it we have this anchor points tab. Now in this case it's grayed out. And the reason why this is grayed out is because this anchor point is attached to a layer that is above the mask generator. And this brings me to one of the first fundamental things I need to explain, is that we cannot have this anchor above the generator that we want to reference. So to fix this, I just need to left click and drag and drop this layer below the mask generator. Now it could be anywhere in the layer stack as long as it's below. So a good workflow would be to take this layer and just drag it all the way to the bottom of the layer stack. So now if I come back to this metal edge wear generator and I come over here to the micro normal, again I'll click this button. Now you can see that my anchor point is no longer grayed out, and I can select this tab. When I select this tab, it's going to show any of the anchors that I have set. If I mouse over this, it's going to start to highlight the layer and the layer group where this anchor exists. So again, this is details. This is what I want to use. So I'm just going to left click to choose this anchor. Now that we have this anchor set, you can see that we have some options here for the referenced channel. And we have a drop down. It's set to base color by default. Now, as you recall, on my layer, we actually painted, if I go to my material, we painted on the normal channel. So we want to reference that normal channel from the anchor. So again, let's go back to our generator. Actually, it's here above this details layer. So let's select this generator. And here again, I'll just scroll down to where I have my micro normal. Again, my details anchor is set, and my reference channel, I'm going to switch this here to normal. So now I'm referencing in the normal information that's been anchored here to this details layer. Now the last thing that I need to do is just simply tell the generator that I want to use this information. So here underneath my micro details normal, I'm going to switch this from off to on. And so once I do that, you can see that I now start to produce some edge wear around this detail that was painted here in my layer stack. So what this shows is that I can now paint information in my layer stack and pass this information over to a mask. In this case, I just happen to link my paint details to a mask generator. But I could also link this to a fill effect, a paint effect, and so on. I don't have to work specifically with masks either. I can link material channels as well. Now, as I go back to this details layer and I start to choose another alpha, so here let's just place in this container 11, and here I'll just scale up my brush, we'll rotate this guy around, and then I'll just left click to stamp in this detail. You can see now the edge wear is following along with this new detail appropriately. I also, of course, still have full control to come into this mask generator and adjust all of the settings. Now, if for some reason you happen to move this layer, for example, remember I said that the details, the anchor needs to be below the layer or effect that's referencing it. So let's just say I move this above that mask generator. So once I do that, you can see that I now get this red line here on the layer, which is indicating that the link has been broken. So here to fix it, again, just make sure that I drop this below the layer that's referencing this anchor. Now, I'd like to show you a more complex example that was put together by Jeremy Noguer. Jeremy is a technical artist and product manager for Substance Painter here at Algorithmic. This example will show how we can use a paintable layer to drive the mask across multiple layers in the stack to produce a complex layering effect. So here I have this paintable layer with an anchor attached. On this layer for the material, only the color channel is enabled with a value of white. So now, as I paint here in the viewport, you can see that I'm damaging the hull to reveal kind of the wire and paneling underneath. As I start to paint on top of this, I can reveal another fire material underneath of this here to increase the overall damage. This entire effect is driven by the ability to link and reference layers using our anchor system. So here, if I select this anchor point, you can see here that we have a series of references. And as I mouse over these references, the layers are highlighted here in the layer stack. So first, let's take a look at this wiring mask. So now if I just left click on this, it's going to select the effect where this anchor is being referenced. Here we have a mask fill. Here for this fill effect on the grayscale channel, an anchor was chosen. So here's the anchor tab, the paintable mask. Again, mousing over this anchor will highlight it in the layer stack. So it's paintable mask, and the reference channel is set to base color. And this mask is now part of this effect stack here for the masking of the wire material. Next, if we come over to the hull, you can see that we have a similar setup with a mask fill effect that's part of an overall effect stack here for this whole material. Finally, we'll come over and take a look at the smoke. And again, you can see we have a similar effect stack with our mask referencing our anchor. Another feature that's new in 2017.2 is the ability to rename fill and paint effects. So for example, if I come over here to my wiring material, you can see that here for the fill, this has actually been renamed to emissive color. And here's another fill that's been renamed to fire. So here if I just double click, you can see that I have a text field and I can enter in a new name for this fill effect. This also works if you add a paint effect. So that will close out this video. As you can see, the new layer and mask reference system allows you to link layers, masks, and effects to produce complex effects not possible in previous versions of Substance Painter.